If it's no Scottish, it's crap!
Oh my.
Election 2024 is over. America has voted, and both sexism and racism have won the day. On Liberal Dan Radio, we will hold everyone accountable, from the media that failed to report the threat that Trump poses to this nation, to the people who supported him. We will pick up the mantle to educate the people about his actions, from being dictator on day one, pardoning January 6th domestic terrorists, implementing Project 2025, and any other draconian measures he tries to pass. And now, the resistance begins. Welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, talking left, that's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. To join the conversation, you can either chat with us in the chat rooms, either at liberaldanradio.com, which is the link to the YouTube channel, or twitch.tv/liberaldanradio. Either way gets you there. We have a bunch of stuff to talk about today. We may very well open up the phone lines in a little bit. When we do, it's 562-542-3261 or 562-LibDan1, but again, they're not open now, so we will go ahead and open those in a little bit once we get done some of the stuff that we're talking about. Shouts out to everyone in the chat room already. We got Steve from across the pond.
If it's no Scottish, it's crap!
We've got Josh, Lisa, let's see, Alton, Mad Mac, Impeccable Living.
Oh my.
We got Aaron. Wait, I'm not supposed to say that Tim's here. He says, I'm not here. Who else did I miss over? So Jeff is here. Good. Suzanne, Jackie, Janelle. Thank you all so much for joining. So of course, I don't need to remind y'all to make sure to smash that like button and hit share, subscribe to the channel, and all the other good ways you could help the show, from commenting, sharing, liking, otherwise interacting with other videos that I post on the channel, sharing them with social media, etc. You could also, if you I'll post in chat now because I have the other link pinned. If you want to take part and help out with the video games playing for nerdydan.com, the Best Fiends game is what we're talking about. There's about 3 weeks left, I think, in 3 weeks left to finish up all of the levels. Getting to level 300 is the last step, but there's several other steps beforehand, like 20, 40, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180. All of those get additional funds as well. Plus, if you get the most bang for your buck if you're spending money, because if you do buy the $2.99 purchase in the game, it gives me $4 in return. Plus, the first 50 that do that will actually have a also gift a sub to someone to my Twitch channel over there as well. So if you like playing fun little games, Andrea, I introduced it to Andrea last night on the Nerdy Dan stream, and she seemed to love it. Other people have enjoyed playing it. My son, I think, enjoys it so much he gets frustrated when he can't beat a level. Then he's like, "Can you beat this level for me, please?" So I was like, it's sweet that they still come to me for help for games sometimes. No, they know that I'm the head gamer regardless of anything else. What else? And of course, one of the more recent ways to help the show is pinned to both the Twitch and YouTube chats is the link to our GoFundMe. My wife is still in the hospital. She's probably going to be in there, I would think, a couple more weeks at least. That's my guess, if not more. So with it being Henry's birthday this week, with all the costs that we've endured and had to take on because of my mother-in-law passing away last year in April, and everything else just is piling up, I bit the bullet and just like, you know what, I'm gonna put this one up there. Like, for some reason, like, it's weird for me, like, if I'm putting up stuff like to help people, like help the podcast in and of itself, like, I don't necessarily have as big of a issue with that ask, simply because of the fact that, I appreciate any help, including free help. But B, to me, it's like, I'm doing this to try and, make it so that I could do this as a living, maybe at some point, and maybe and that ultimately that's going to involve, people who enjoy the show, gifting things, whatever, and that's fine, and that's podcast related. But this, I still felt weird just asking for help just to help me and my wife or whatever. But I was like, my pride is less important than making sure that my kids and my wife are taken care of. So that's why that's why I went ahead and did the GoFundMe. Thank you, Impeccable Living, for gifting 5 memberships. That deserves another.
Oh my.
I should give 5 of them.
Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. Oh my.
There we go. We got a lot of oh my's for Impeccable Living. Maybe one day I can make favorite sounds for all of you as well. I don't know if I'll be able to have one for everybody, but as Donald Trump says,
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. I love my new soundboard. I'm glad I found this one. It makes things so much more easier to control the sounds. There's no delay like Blog Talk Radio used to have. There's no where like you hit it and then it didn't play immediately. The other ones, sometimes it would cut off like the first little bit, but I think that was more because of my old laptop than anything else. So yeah, this is a fun little one to have. So update on my wait, Josh. Hey, Impeccable, I was thinking of you bringing wood in tonight. Wait, that deserves another one.
Oh my.
Anyway, so update on my wife. So Monday night, I don't know if we got the full-on explanation as to what. So they're I think they're more convinced. Hey, Aaron is a liberal Danimal for 13 months as well. Thank you, Aaron, for your constant support of this show. I don't know what I would do without you or Jolie. But whatchamacallit? What was this? Anyway, so they are, I think, more and more convinced now that it is Guillain-Barré syndrome, or more specifically, I just had the name of it in my head, and we talked about it last night, Aaron. Miller-Fisher, that's it. Miller-Fisher syndrome is a subset, I guess, or a subdiagnosis of Guillain-Barré syndrome. It's they don't consider that to be very much at all, like deadly or anything like that. But they do. It might take a while to get over everything and for everything to be better. But they did, when you have that, they've switched her off the high steroid treatments and instead put her on immunoglobulin therapy via the IV intravenously. So that's going to be, I thought it was 5 days, but I think then my wife just said today 7 days, so they might be doing it for a whole week. So there's that, and then there's the fact that, and then afterwards, they're going to be doing inpatient rehab with her, which thankfully, because she was in no position to be able to walk around and get around anywhere in the house. So yeah, there was no way that was going to happen in the condition that she was in. So she seems to be in good mood, good cheer. I'm sure it's frustrating, but I know she's been tired a lot of sleeping a lot, so whatever, because I'll look, and usually you look at my wife's phone and it's like active 12 minutes ago, active 15 minutes ago. It's very rare to see like last active 12 hours ago. So she's definitely getting some rest, getting some sleep as is needed. We're it's tough. It's I'm sure it's hard on the boys, and I've asked the boys how they're doing, and they've said they said fine, but I know sometimes they don't like to talk about their feelings as much. Excuse me. So yeah, they don't necessarily like to talk about their feelings too terribly much, and as such, it's not it may be difficult to kind of judge and gauge where they're coming from. Hey, Trucker John's in the chat. I saw Trucker John. There you are. Good to see you. Don's here. Thank you for joining as well. I was talking about the kids, and Josh had posted, Dan, how's your kids holding up with the difficulties? And literally, I just said that. I just started talking about it without seeing what you said. So I guess we're right there on the same wavelength, right? So yeah, again, it's hard to see. It's hard to tell. Exactly. I mean, you could tell a little bit on last Thursday, a week ago, when we brought her into the emergency room, and he was pissed off that he couldn't stay with us in the emergency room and had to wait in the waiting room area, and I was pissed off about that too. But you could tell that Henry was a little bit frustrated with things, because he basically texted me. He was like, "You want me to curse somebody out? Because I'll be more than happy to curse somebody out." And I'm like, "No, you don't need to harass or whatever any of the hospital staff. I mean, that's technically illegal to harass them or to give them verbal abuse or whatever. So let's keep you from going to juvie." because your mommy's in the hospital. We don't need to deal with you in juvie on top of everything. So you could tell maybe a little bit, but I've asked his teachers to keep an eye out to try and see, hey, is anything going on? Is he getting overly distracted? Is anything going on that's weird, that's different from the normal? So there's that. That's funny. Josh was hitting send as I said it. Brilliant minds think alike, right? And I don't think you have as much of a delay anymore because of my new setup. I'm seeing, I see myself move a hand here, and then like a second later I see it happen on Twitch, and then a second later I see it happen on YouTube. So it's funny. Because it used to be like I used to see things like a minute below delayed in my how I see what's going on the YouTube stream. So anyway, let's see. Highlander, did I miss Highlander? Kelly's here. Good to see you, Kelly. Big Hook is here as well. Good to see you, Big Hook, as well. Molly, thank you for joining. Or is Molly joining, or Molly just? Oh, there you are. Yeah, Molly got one of the gifted subs, and she came in because of the gifted sub. Oh, Jolie's here too. Good to see you, Jolie, as well. I must have missed you popping on in the chat as I was giving the update about mi esposa and how she's doing in La Enfermeria, if that's the correct Spanish. I know mi esposa is correct. I don't know if enfermeria is the correct thing for a hospital, or if that's just like something, the place for sick people. So, yes, good to see you, Molly. Anyway, a bunch of stuff to talk about. Before we start talking about this, let's go ahead and, about the Gaza thing, let's go back and, just switch back to this one. Because, first and foremost, I don't know if you've seen the words or the interview with Senator Kennedy from Louisiana. I don't know if you've seen them. I don't know if you've seen his interview. I think MSNBC did show clips of it or whatever. But when I saw it, I was like, there is old Senator Foghorn Leghorn just doing what he do. But he and in his interview are this week's words of redneck wisdom.
And now, words of redneck wisdom, brought to you by Liberal Dan Radio.
It's kind of cool having a president again. I like omelets. I mean, I really like omelets. I could eat an omelet at every meal. I like omelets better than sex. You can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. Now, President Trump ran for office saying, I'm going to review every single penny in the federal budget. Now, how are you going to review the spending in the federal budget without reviewing the spending? And that's what Mr. Musk is doing. Now, many of my Democratic colleagues and some of the tofu-eating wokarati at the USAID are screaming like they're part of a prison riot because they don't want us reviewing the spending. But that's all Mr. Musk is doing, and he's finding some pretty interesting stuff. To my friends who are upset, I would say with respect, call somebody who cares. They better get used to this. It's USAID today. It's going to be Department of Education tomorrow. If you notice, my Democratic colleagues and the USAID officials, they're not defending the spending. All they're talking about is process.
And this concludes Words of Redneck Wisdom, brought to you by Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right.
Yes, impeccable living. That is absolutely real. Those are words that he did say. I cut out some of Sean Hannity's commentary. I cut out some of the non-ridiculous stuff in there. But yes, that is legitimately what we have to deal with one of our senators here in good old Louisiana. I can't unassociate his voice from the lube reading, or do you say lip reading? But it's just, yeah, it's just Senator Foghorn Leghorn. There's actually like a mesothelioma commercial where there's some old guy I think it was mesothelioma. I don't know if they aired anywhere else, but there's this guy talking and he's like, "That's not right." And the way he says "that's not right" just sounds exactly like Senator Kennedy would say it. So I'm like, is he the voice of this commercial? But yeah, no. But this is another reason why, another thing that I think I need to do a little bit of this as well when it comes to old Senator Kennedy, because Senator Kennedy is worried about, says that we're worried about process. We are worried about process. That's his problem. Not that, not that we are worried about, whether or not the thing to do is right, or that, Donald Trump campaigned that he would do this, that we're worried about process. Senator Kennedy, do you mean the law? By process, that's what you mean. The procedure, the process of how we're supposed to go about doing things in, stopping spending, or, since Congress holds the purse strings. You should know that as somebody who sits as in a House of Congress. You should know these things, but I guess you don't care about these things as long as the things that are being done are things that you support, are being done by the president that you supported for president. But we're worried about, we're worried about the frickin' law. We're worried about giving the information to somebody who can't be trusted with it. And also, how much do you really like omelets, sir? That's a disturbing amount of, what else do you do when you make your omelets? I'm hoping that you eat the omelets. There's the high price of eggs makes it so that nobody should be wasting an egg on anything. Now, if you want to eat an omelet, that's fine. But if you enjoy omelets more than sex, I don't know if I want to know what exactly it is that you're doing with the eggs that you make, or the omelets that you make. I don't want to know what's in it either.
Oh my.
It's just gross. Also, you're from the South, Senator Kennedy. If you're from the South, you shouldn't be saying the words or the lyrics of a song incorrectly. It's not just call someone who cares. It's here's a quarter, call someone who cares. So you're just wrong on all three levels. And because of that, I say,
you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Anyway, that's my fat man rant on Senator Kennedy. Agree, disagree, leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, unless you're a Nazi, have a good day. And I had no idea that I was actually going to play that "you get nothing, you lose, good day, sir" as part of this rant, until I just happened to look at my shirt, and I was like, oh, I'm actually wearing that shirt today, so might as well throw it into my fat man rant. Hey, Teresa, good to see you. So, yes. Yeah, nobody needs to know about what Senator Kennedy is doing with those omelets. Ugh. Although, depending on, if he's a lot like President Trump, he may very well only have to use quail eggs instead of chicken eggs, right? Musk couldn't get a security clearance of any degree. Pretty much. Wouldn't Foghorn Leghorn eating omelets be capitalism? But if he's doing the other thing with omelets, is it cannibalism, or is that incest? Anyway. Thank you for that little lob there. Appreciate it. It just worked out perfectly. Impeccable living. I thought you might like Rocky Mountain oysters more. I don't know. Just me. Elon is exposing corruption. Is he now? Is he exposing corruption? Do you really believe that, Jim? Because I don't believe that's 100% at all. I don't believe he's introducing corruption into the system. He has no business doing anything that he's doing unless he's somebody who needs to know, needs to see that data. One of the problems I have with the Trump administration just altogether with how they're trying to just, let's stop everything from being paid, see what breaks, and then fix it from there. As I've said, I think in another video, you don't fix a car by just removing all of the pieces from the engine and be like, is this one bad? Is this one bad? No, you run a diagnostic on the vehicle. You see which part is actually the part that's causing the problem. You remove that part and you replace it if it needs to be replaced, or you just remove whatever it is that's causing any sort of obstruction altogether, things that are unnecessary. It's like in order to see what's wrong with the human body, you have to kill the person first, see what's wrong, and then bring them back to life. It's just bizarre. Hey, Jolie, thank you for also being a liberal Danimal for 13 months. So, what's wrong with transparency? Nothing's wrong with transparency. We're not going to get transparency with a lot of things. I think Donald Trump fought a lot of things being transparent under the guise of executive privilege. The Supreme Court just ruled that anything that the executive branch does it cannot be subpoenaed. So not even can we not do a public records request for the things that the president does as part of the executive powers. We can't even subpoena it with law enforcement because it's considered privileged information. The Supreme Court increased or decrease the amount of transparency that this government has by giving carte blanche immunity for anything that is discussed by the president and sent to his administration, I guess via the official channels or what have you. And then we're also to assume that everything that has to do with presidential actions are considered to be immune, because if you can't subpoena them to find out what's going on, you can't see the details as to what they're doing to see whether or not the action is in and of itself a presidential action qualified or allowed under the Constitution or not. So don't come to me about transparency. I've been screaming for transparency for a damn long time now. Donald Trump doesn't want transparency. He doesn't want you to be able to see what he's doing. He wants people to see what he wants you to see. They want to be able to, manipulate the numbers and do whatever and lie to us and do all sorts of things. And we're going to get to another part of this in a second there. Joe or what have you. So you have to, here's the thing. You want to prove that people are corrupt? You want to do that? You want to prove people are corrupt? Then you should have to prove the corruption first. You don't just start off by assuming that everybody's corrupt and everybody's guilty. That's not how we do things in this country. Donald Trump is only fired people. He didn't just do a blanket firing. He only fired people that, were civil servants that were going after him as part of the probe of him mishandling documents that were classified, which he did. He absolutely mishandled. And he's an idiot about it too. He's an absolute idiot about the whole thing because he signed a bill into law saying, guess what? If you mishandled these documents, it's now going from a misdemeanor to a felony of up to 5 years per case. And what is he on video or on audio recording doing? Showing people without clearance documents that he admitted himself that he did not declassify, but yet he's showing them anyway. He had no right at that time to show anybody those documents because they were still classified documents, and he is not the arbiter at that point when he showed it to the people because he was not president at the time. He was not the arbiter of who gets to see these or who doesn't. But yet he still showed it to them, which is violation of the law that he signed. What kind of idiot signs a law and then breaks his own damn law? Doesn't make no sense. Whatsoever. And we're not mad at Elon. We're mad that we're in the situation that we're in because we don't believe that Elon Musk has the authority, the integrity, or the trustworthiness to be having the levels of access that he does. The reason we have, security on that information is because we don't want anyone just seeing it. Because there are certain things that are involved. If we want to do a fine-tooth comb looking at every single part of government spending, if we want to do that and want to go bit by bit and cut every single thing that's not needed and not necessary, I have no problem with that. But do it legally. Who controls the purse strings? It's not the White House. The purse strings are controlled by Congress. So if Congress authorized spending, how is then the executive branch able to stop that? The Supreme Court even ruled against Joe Biden when it came that way, because the expenditures that were approved by Congress in, I guess, 2020 for the next fiscal year included building the wall. Joe Biden didn't want to build the wall. The Republicans sued that Joe Biden was not spending the money properly, and the Supreme Court said, hey, guess what? The Congress allocated these funds specifically to be spent for wall building, so therefore you can't spend them on anything other than wall building, because Congress controls the purse strings. So if you supported the Supreme Court and the Republican Party for suing over that because of the ability, because they didn't want to allow the president to have powers beyond what he is given in the Constitution, the same thing should apply here. You want to make sure that only Congress spends, then only Congress should spend, which means that President Trump doesn't get to decide what gets cut and what doesn't get cut. You can still look at the data, but you should have the people looking at the data be vetted as being qualified to be able to see it. You should limit the access of the data to people who, should be able to handle it, who sign things that verify that they're not going to disclose the information to anybody else, and so on and so forth. The fact that conservatives are now crying about transparency whilst trying to say that Trump has executive privilege and we can't view anything that he did, can't be critical of anything he did, it's just hypocrisy. But hypocrisy is a conservative prerequisite, so we shouldn't be surprised. So what if I have Jim Terry? What if I have children and kids? What about that? I have 3 cats, 2 dogs, and 2 kids. Am I allowed to have an opinion on that, old Jim? Joe, the president is in charge of our borders. Did you say that, Joe, when President Biden was trying to not build the wall that Congress had expended money? Congress said, hey, we're going to pass this money to continue building the wall. And when Joe Biden said, hey, I don't want to build this wall, I don't agree with it, so why should I have to build it as president? And then did you then say, President Biden is correct. As president, he gets to determine what things are done on the border. And as such, did you not criticize him for that? Or did you say President Biden was acting lawlessly because he didn't spend the money that Congress allocated to him to do? Or at least to the last president to do, but they were wanting the last president to be that president, and we're not expecting Joe Biden to be able to kick Donald Trump's ass. So, I mean, be at least consistent. I know the answer to that question is no. I know the answer to the question is no. I did not say that Joe Biden should be able to determine whether or not walls get built. He should. President, you probably said that President Biden clearly needs to spend the money as Congress allocated it. If President Biden has to spend the funds as Congress allocates it, then Donald Trump has to spend the funds as Congress allocates it. What's up, Progressively Independent? Good to see you. Yeah, he was making safe that and we didn't have open borders under Biden. Y'all take the fact that the Biden administration stopped a bunch of people as evidence that we had open borders. If Biden stopped more people crossing the border with fentanyl than Trump did, then either Trump let more through, or Biden took it seriously. Y'all are complaining that he stopped people, that his administration stopped fentanyl from coming in. We know that Donald Trump during the COVID-19 pandemic said that he wanted to slow down testing. He wanted to stop testing because his dumbass mind said if you have more testing, you have more cases, which should tell everybody anything that you need to know about how Donald Trump makes his decisions. He could have had a better handle on the pandemic if we would have done more robust testing across the nation, but we didn't. Because Donald Trump didn't want the so-called optics of more positive cases harming his political campaign. So he wanted to have less testing so we would reveal less cases. The cases would still be there. People would still be infected. People would still be sick. You just wouldn't have as much testing going on, so you wouldn't be able to see the real number. He didn't want transparency when it came to the COVID numbers. He wanted people to not be able to see anything. He wanted us to put our heads in the collective sand simply because he wanted to be able to win a presidential election, and he didn't think he'd be able to do that if people knew the real numbers when it came to COVID. So again, don't come at us trying to say, this is all about transparency, when Donald Trump has never been transparent about a damn thing since day one. You would need to be critical about all issues of transparency. I've criticized my side for a lack of transparency, abso-freaking-lutely. I will do it when my side does it. This is not an example of Democrats trying to fight transparency. This is an example of Democrats trying to prevent irresponsible and irrational activities from going on behalf of the executive branch, because they are the only ones in the legislative branch willing to do their duty, which is to act as a check and balance of the power of the executive branch. Because the conservatives, the Republicans in the House and the Senate, are basically bending over forwards or backwards, however Donald Trump wants it, to aid and abet him doing harm to this country. And yes, Josh is exactly right that Republicans are the ones that blocked the border bill. It was a bipartisan border bill. It was passed by a Republican senator, or it was written by a Republican senator. It gave away a lot of stuff that liberals and leftists did not like, but Joe Biden understood that when you pass things and you kind of want to make compromises in order to make sure that people are happy with some of it, but nobody gets everything that they want. But he got it to a point where it was negotiated with Republicans. It was written with help of the Republicans. It gave the Republicans a lot of what they wanted. And why did Donald Trump say no? And then tell his Republican cohorts in the House to say no? Because he knew that if you passed that bill, then Donald Trump wouldn't have as much of a leg to stand on, because he would then be less likely to be able to use the border in his arguments as to why he should be the next president. Of course, to his listeners, to his followers, to the rabid MAGA folks, they don't care if what he says is true or not. So it could have passed, and for a good chunk of his supporters, he would have been like, well, we still need to do more, and his supporters would be like, yeah, we need to do more, blah, 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 blah. And then, but without them passing the bill, it made it more likely that he would be able to get away with just saying that, he needs to be the one to fix the border, even though Biden had legislation passed. Yes, it would have added 200 immigration judges, as Josh rightly points out. By doing that, it would have expedited a lot of the hearings, a lot of the stuff that was going on. Jim, who do you deem as a radical left lunatic there, Jim? Let's see. Jim says 20 million illegals entered our country. There was what? How do you know that everybody that entered the country did so illegally? It is legal to enter our country and ask for asylum. A lot of the problems with people who are violating our national security policies, be on the border and immigration, a lot are people that overstay their visas, or maybe who lie on their visas. Melania. Those people are a big portion of the problem of people who violate our laws. But, again, Obama was called the deporter-in-chief by La Raza. Democrats don't have an issue with deporting people. It's just that Democrats, when we deport people, we focus our attention. The Democratic politicians that try to deport people focus on the hardened criminals, the people who are, violent criminals. They're not just picking up every Tom, Dick, and Harry off the street who happens to look like they're Hispanic and be like, "We're deporting you." Oh, but I'm here legally. Do you have your papers on you? No. Well, no papers. You're getting deported too. And the Trump administration has started targeting people who are here legally. So it's not about illegal or not. It's about going after Hispanic-looking people because that's part of the people that Donald Trump do not like. Hispanic-looking people. Joe, that is not true. Asylum law does not state that you must request in the first country you enter. That is a rule, I think, in the European Union. They've adopted that rule, but that is not an international rule. Period. Y'all keep saying that lie, but it's a lie. No, it's misinformation, I guess I should say. If you believed it up until this point to be a fact, then you are now informed. You were informed incorrectly about it. If you knowingly if you knowingly say that point, you are now lying. So I'll give you benefit of the doubt in that up until you said it just then, you may have believed it to be a true statement, but now it's a false statement. So if you say it again, you're now a liar. Thank you. This has been my TED Talk. Let's see. This move, fast and break shit nonsense has to stop. Reinvent the wheel BS that we currently have works fine. Yes, exactly. And here's the thing: is like, and we'll get to the whole Gaza thing in a second. But I think part of the reason why he announced the whole Gaza thing is because he wants to just have so much people talking about that and that ridiculousness that it's going to make people be less likely to look at what's going on inside the federal government with Elon, with Trump, with that stupid fork in the road letter that nobody should accept that deal because they're going to get screwed if they do. So, see, Lisa Gray, I like a government that cares for all citizens and preserving a social safety net like a modern Western European country. Is that asking too much? Chad, asylum seekers for America are required to request at an embassy or point of entry. That is not true, or that had never been the case. And then when Donald Trump was president, he closed the points of entry, so to speak. It was, you could just walk across the border and step on U.S. soil and say, "I request asylum," and boom, there you go. So Chad, tell that to all the Cubans entering Florida. All the Cubans that hop on a boat and get one foot on dry land in Florida. You're gonna tell them they also need to enter through a port of entry? No, it's not the case. Would we prefer that be the case? Sure. You can't do it at an embassy. You can't go to the American embassy in Mexico City or whatever it is and be like, "I request asylum." No, it can't be done there. You have to do it on our. You can do it on our soil. You can do it at a point of entry, but you also can do it on our soil. Y'all don't. That's the thing. Y'all are told a whole bunch of BS from the people. And there must be credible fear. In order to be granted asylum, you have to have credible fear. But you can request asylum, and then you get a case, and then that case gets adjudicated, and then it's determined whether or not your fear was credible or not. And then if asylum is not granted, then out you go. But you have to have a case. And the bipartisan border deal that was passed would have created more judges, would have paid for more judges so they could have adjudicated more cases and got them out of the system more quickly. But that's not what Donald Trump wanted. Donald Trump wanted there to be mucks in the works so that he could have an excuse to send his first flight of people all the way on to Gitmo, which I think also happened yesterday. One of the reasons why I think he made his Gaza statement yesterday. Right? Because by doing that, that took the news, and as such, it prevented people from seeing the fact that the first flight of undocumented detainees or whatever have been sent off to our concentration camps at Gitmo. Let's see something. Let's see. How to seek asylum in the U.S. or USA.gov. You have to be in order to be eligible for asylum, you must be inside the United States. This is from USA.gov/asylum. To be eligible for asylum, you must be inside the United States. You must be able to demonstrate that you are persecuted or have fear of persecution in your home country due to race, religion, nationality, social group, or political opinion. In most cases, a decision will be made on your asylum application within 180 days after your file. You can also file asylum form 589 within 1 year of arriving in the U.S., working in the U.S., helping family members seek asylum, filing for whatever. You can sponsor asylum that way. So no, it just says you have to be inside the U.S. And this is USA.gov, an official website of the U.S. government. I guess apparently Donald Trump and his ilk have not been able to get there. See, to get refugee status, you have to be outside the United States and blah, 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 blah. But in order to seek asylum, you have to be inside the United States. It doesn't say where in the United States you have to be. It just says you have to be in the United States. So again, this has been my second TED Talk. You are now more educated. But I do want to say thank you for joining the show, Chad, even though we disagree about stuff. It's good to see you again. If you haven't been catching up, I have a GoFundMe up there. Just everybody new, anybody who might be new and who hasn't been listening or hasn't seen anything since like last week. My wife is back in the hospital, so there is a GoFundMe up there, and I'm trying to raise funds because lack of salary. My wife is not going to be working as much if at all. I mean, she has her work computer with her in the hospital because we live in a dystopian hellscape, which basically requires people who are in the hospital getting immunoglobulin therapy, apparently, to have to still work in order to help pay their bills. So the medical bills, we're going to max out of pocket. Absolutely no doubts in my mind that we're going to be capping out her max out of pocket by the end of this month, clearly, even beforehand. And plus all the other things that are going on. So I'm just asking everybody to please, again, if you can't contribute to it, please share it and say, hey, there's this guy Dan. I kind of like him a little bit. He does a podcast twice a week, and him and his wife are having some medical issues and need some help. Oh, it's a Seha. Good to see you, Seha. Thank you for stopping by. It's Dean. Good. Hello, Dean. Thank you for saying prayers. Appreciate any good thoughts sent the way. And thank you, Joe, as well. But again, part of me doing this is the fact that, keeps the routine going. It's always good to have the routine going. And it's kind of, I guess, as it's cathartic is whatever. Well, I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for. But it basically kind of helps me, kind of, even though I do talk about it, it helps, being able to talk about politics, chat about this sort of stuff does help out in the long run, I think. So I'm thankful for all of you for being here, for joining the show, and I'm thankful for all of y'all for the help so far on the GoFundMe has been amazing. Like, I was not expecting to hit $2,000 already, and we hit $2,000 yesterday. Now we haven't had anything since yesterday. It's kind of stalled. I don't know if it needs more shares or not, but still, again, any sharing that y'all can do, I really, really appreciate it. And also another free way to help the show, I'll put that back in the chat as well. It's still, I think, I'll put it in both. There's my Nerdy Dan stream that I do once a week, for a game called Best Fiends. We are, if you play it, it's free to play. You don't have to pay anything to play it. If you get up to level 300, there's certain benchmarks you can get. You get to level 20, that's a little bit get to level 40, get to level 60, get to 100, 120, 140, etc. Up to almost 200, and then you hit 300, and that's the last one. But if you do donate, if you do pay $2.99 in game, it does get me four total bucks back to me. So it actually gives me more money than you spend. Plus, it also gifts subscriptions to people on my Nerdy Dan stream. So if you haven't downloaded the game already, please download it, play it. It'll help me even more. I've made about, I think, $110 on it so far with the people who have played it so far, and I think I can get it. It's possible to get it all the way up to $1,000 as well. So free playing a game can help me make $1,000 extra bucks and potentially more. So Anybody who hasn't downloaded it, please make sure to do so. Thank you so much. Progressively independent. I want to move to Thailand. My family doesn't want to go. I have a friend of mine yesterday that told me that she and her husband want to go to Canada after whatever contract is up or whatever her lease is up, because she just is afraid to be here. And there are a lot of people I'm absolutely a lot of just people I don't blame them wanting to leave and wanting to get out, because there are people who are terrified. Terry, you say that USAID was sending condoms to Hamas. The reporting was initially that they were sending condoms to Gaza, but there's also a Gaza in Mozambique, which is in Africa. So if any condoms are being sent to Gaza, it's more likely that those sort of things and any sort of AIDS prevention was probably being sent to the Gaza in Mozambique and not the Gaza in Israel/Palestine, or whatever you want to call it. Not the Middle East Gaza, but the Southern Africa Gaza. So there's that. Thank you, Seha, for the $2. Appreciate you. That's hard. I didn't like it. Doesn't seem to want to like. I don't know. Did you make any more, Chad? Have you made any more money off of Truth Social? I do remember you said you got a nice payout from there, so I'm wondering if you got anything more from Truth Social. Any more buying the dips and getting more money? I mean, I guess if you're buying Truth Social, you are buying a dip, but the Democratic Party, it's Democratic Party, I'm Democrat. Why do you, I mean, I'm Jewish, Jim. I don't believe in Satan, so it's hard to claim that I'm a Satanist when I don't believe in Satan to begin with. Never was raised to believe in Satan, no such thing. So let's see. Stephen Sayers, I don't want to move. I just want to turn my state blue. I would love for more states to turn blue, but
it is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. I'm convinced that Trump is going to try and beat Hitler's death toll record. He may very well try. And, I mean, he's already responsible for hundreds of thousands of deaths as it pertains to COVID. I mean, he mishandled COVID so poorly that it's hundreds of thousands of deaths. And if you remember, during COVID, it was Kushner that suggested that we don't do anything about the inner cities because the inner cities are more densely populated. So therefore, he believed that by allowing just the virus to spread in the inner cities, you would kill off more Democrats and make it more likely that Republicans could take over in blue states or even in blue cities, because you will have killed them because of how you handled COVID. And it was that was supposed to be a feature, not a bug, to their plans of the administration. And of course, those numbers kind of showed it to be true. Like at the beginning of the pandemic, the deaths were coming in more from the from the urban centers than from rural areas. Like blue areas were getting much more. We're getting more of the deaths than the red areas. However, once the vaccines came out, and once the people on the blue side in the urban areas who were more likely to be Democrat than not, once they started taking their vaccines, the virus spread in those areas slowed significantly, and then the virus spread was really taking place in the red areas. And so 5 out of 6 of the COVID deaths that were taking place were coming from red areas, not blue areas. So. But yes, Lisa. So that's why I believe that's another reason to believe that Kushner wanted areas with high black voter concentrations to be taken out by COVID because it would allow the Republicans to get gains, would allow his family, I guess, who would to buy up some properties and make some money off of the properties that are now left vacant from the deaths. And now Kushner wants to do the same thing in Gaza. We'll get to that in a second. Let's see, Chad. I made $20,000 from TGT last year, then left that junk shit alone. The stock is based purely off emotions. The fundamentals of the company are awful. Well, I'm glad you realized that's probably one of the reasons why I didn't jump in the first place. So, well, I think you might also, Chad, you might also be banned somewhere else too that I'm aware of, but because of how you were mean to one of my good friends. So. But anyway, what was I going to say? But yeah, If you have any spare change laying around, please free to donate to the GoFundMe. You have been generous with your super chats in the past, though. I do appreciate that. But you know, if some of the GoFundMe comes from proceeds from the sale of Truth Social, I'll just get a kick out of that. But anyway, I don't have much in the market, Lisa, except for what's in my 401k plans, and also what's I have some stocks that I have losses on that I'm not even bothering selling, because selling now instead of selling later just wouldn't make that much of a difference as a percentage lost. So not a big deal. Let's see, what's Josh's dangerous game? Oh, I do have some. I was able to bring Cassie's car in to get her air condition looked at. Problem is, because I needed to bring it in yesterday, because if I didn't get it into the shop before the warranty was up, they wouldn't fix it. Now, my thing is, I'm wondering if they're going to wait till after the warranty's up and then try and claim, oh, now it's after the warranty, it's no longer covered, and then I'll be freaking... That'll be something else that I add to my video on my Kia Sucks series. Jake, RIP Department of Education, aka the Department of Indoctrination. Oh, you're one of those, eh? You know, the Department of Education here... Thank you, Chad. Appreciate you. One of my sons has an IEP, he had an IEP a long time. Actually, both of my kids, I think, had IEPs for a second. My oldest one had speech delay and didn't actually really say any words until his 4th birthday, until after becoming 4. You know, he started off learning sign language a little bit to try to help him process language and, you know, express his thoughts better. But now, you know, he talks with no problem. He actually speaks in front of, you know, he gives presentations in front of class, apparently. When I heard that and how he was more than willing to give a presentation in front of his class, it was great. Actually, but even when he was in elementary school, there was one day he hated us seeing him doing anything in school. Like, he didn't want us having any updates of what went on. But one of his friend's moms sent us this video of he was the only one in his group to show up to give this presentation. And what happened? He gave an amazing presentation, all in Spanish. I think it was about snakes or something. I don't know. But it was just so cute that he was just sitting there, just talk after somebody who was there who got an IEP. An IEP are things that are made possible by the Department of Education. My son, I think, had an IEP for torticollis, and that covered that. He was covered for that as well. But my son also has an IEP for various other things, like sometimes he needs to have a computer to write things instead of having to have it do it by pen and pencil, simply because of the fact that he went from crawling, he skipped crawling. He went from sitting to walking without much crawling, and that was not good for his core. And so he had a hard time, you know, writing for long periods of time, but typing is easier. I think both my boys, I think I've discussed, had ADHD, so they have IEPs for that as well. So the idea, so having something at the federal level to protect all people who need, like, for example, IEPs is very important. And, you know, God forbid that we have national standards on what should be taught, like minimal standards of what should be taught. If you're a state and you want to teach more than the minimal standards, by all means do so, as long as you're not doing it in a way that's unconstitutional. But the idea that we are going to be any good getting rid of the Department of Education is founded nowhere in reality. It's just Donald Trump giving away to the conservatives things that conservatives have bitched and complained and moaned about because they want it back in the states. I don't trust the state of Louisiana with handling issues of disability, with handling issues of IEP. I mean, the conservatives are so upset about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Hey, Krista, thank you so much for the 666 super chat. Appreciate you. And you did that right as we have 69 views. Nice. So if diversity, equity, and inclusion are all good things. Of course, when the Republicans and MAGA folks say that they don't like so-called DEI hires, DEI hire is just another way to say the N-word without saying the N-word. If you call somebody a DEI hire in public, you're probably calling them an N-word in private. So, or some other bigoted slur if they happen to not be black, as being a so-called DEI hire, and instead have some other way to describe you that the bigots could describe you in a bigoted way, right? So, anyway. So, but that's I think for a very, from now on, instead of all of us saying DEI when we talk about the issue, we should all say it all out loud. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Say, I support diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when somebody then tries to counter you and say why they don't, you can then force them to say, well, which part do you not like? Is it the diversity part that you don't like? Is it the equity part? Or is it the inclusion part you don't like? Tell us which part of that you don't like. When they say DEI hire, to ask them, what does DEI stand for and why don't you like it? Why do you oppose it? Force their hand to explain which parts they don't like. Because we all know they don't like the diversity part. They want their workplaces to be old white men, and maybe some young white men to take their places when they get older. They don't like equity for whatever reason. I guess they feel that, if they're so-called able-bodied, and then they're so-called able-bodied, and they can do the jobs without any assistance, they are like, well, if I can do the job without assistance, they should be able to do the job without assistance too. When, equity is about more than just that, but enabling people who, might need special things to help them do the job that anybody else can do is not a negative thing. But of course, they're going to say it's a negative thing because they view it as something completely different. And inclusion, of course, is just not denying people a job because of what they believe. Even if it means that they believe, in popular, well-supported, I guess, things like, they're Christians or whatever. Not supposed to punish them either, right? But the most DEI hires, most diversity, equity, and inclusion hires benefit people who are white for various other reasons. So just remember that. Oh yes, Lisa, you're correct. Straight and cisgender as well. So. Jeff Curry, I'm a NASCAR fan. DEI is Dale Earnhardt Inc. Yeah. Exactly, Big Hook. DEI is a new replacement for the N-word. Do I know Amanda... Impeccable Living, you want to answer that question? I'm sitting there reading the first name, and I'm just like, yeah... No. I'm not the bartender in The Simpsons. But if you're looking for that, you could always get Impeccable Living, right?
Oh my.
I might have gotten out of bed in the morning, but it wasn't this morning, right? Or something like that. Yeah, MAGA women are definitely crying foul because a bunch of, apparently, I still haven't found the overall source of this, but it's truthful, so I believe it. Or sounds good enough, so I'll believe it until hearing otherwise, that there are people who were fired by the Donald Trump administration, who are Republican women, who were upset that they lost their jobs because they thought when Republicans were going after DEI, when Trump was going after diversity, equity, and inclusion, that it just meant they were going after black people, or gay people, or trans people, or whatever. They didn't think it also meant women. But for Republicans and conservatives, they will do things that specifically hire people for their gender. They will specifically do that. For example, they hired Amy Coney Barrett to be on the Supreme Court, to be a justice on the Supreme Court, to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I flat out said, if we don't replace RBG now, back then, if Donald Trump got to replace RBG, that it was going to be replaced by some Republican woman, and probably Amy Coney Barrett. But nobody wanted to believe me. But yet that's what happened. But nobody. If everybody believed me and like Hal, we wouldn't be in half the problems that we're in. Because I always say that I wish I was more wrong than I am. But I've been proven right time and time again. And I've seen Hal predict things, and they've come true as well. Like, the Democratic Party should really listen to myself and Hal Sparks specifically, because I don't know anybody else who's been more right than us about what's going to happen if we've had Donald Trump and Republicans and MAGA for all this time. And we'll get to even more of that in a second. And yeah, Roxanne, it does seem like we've gotten a bunch of additional conservative folks hopping into the chat. But of course, as Hal Sparks teach us, even the people with negative comments help the algorithms. And as I say, Al Gore definitely needs more rhythm. And so we like the algorithms being aided. See, education, intelligence don't imply you have common sense or moral compass. That's true. But also, I think the sense that's common now is nonsense. So that's the only common sense that happens now. Anything else is not common. Good to see you, John Deff. Thank you for stopping by. See, Democrats' problem for a long time is not letting go of power when their time is past. Hello, Mitch McConnell. Hello, Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump is the person who refused to let go of power January 6, 2020. Right? Or 2021, I should say. I'm sorry. It was 2021. Exactly, Lisa. Common sense ain't common. But nonsense is. Nonsense is the only sense that's common. That's what I say. But anyway, I did want to record. I did make this image right here to record something with it. So I fully believe that we should always just, when people ask us who the president is, when we talk about the president, we should always be saying that the president is Elon Musk. Just say President Musk ordered this, President Musk ordered that. Because the more and more people start saying, the more people who start saying President Musk over and over and over again, it's going to get to Donald and it's going to make him mad. And that's probably the best way to get Donald Trump to get Elon Musk out of the government, is for enough people to say that the president of the country is Elon Musk. Donald Trump's ego won't be able to take it. And we might be able to have Donald Trump do that dirty work for us, i.e. get rid of Elon Musk from the halls of power. Now, will Donald Trump replace him with somebody worse? Probably, but again, we shouldn't have elected Donald Trump in the first place, but let's still call him President Musk. President Mush, yeah. Or in Trump's case, nut sense. Yes, exactly. Although I don't know if Donald Trump has ever had any sort of nut sense or post-nut clarity or whatever. I don't know if they have clarity to begin with. Wait, who body shamed? Was there body shaming going on? Because, no, we don't like body shaming. Even if, like, for example, Donald Trump may very well not be in the best shape of his life or what have you. But if we agree or disagree with Donald Trump, we shouldn't be body shaming Donald Trump. We should be criticizing him, not based on any obesity over things that he may have actually control over. Because sometimes people really don't have control over obesity because there are various different things that affect it, be it former childhood time abuse, be it thyroid issues, be it other medical issues that make it difficult for a various large amount of people to stop themselves from being large. And if we disagree with Donald Trump, we can do so in a way that doesn't body shame. That being said, if we can criticize things for Donald Trump about things he has control over, that's perfectly fine and okay. We can mock him for him being orange because he purposely dyes himself orange or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know if Nunt, I don't know how far Nunt goes. I don't even know what Nunt is. Even though you've just described it, I don't think I've ever heard of it like that. So, Jake H. AOC is not an... AOC used to be a bartender. I used to wait tables. Does that mean I'm uneducated because I once waited tables? I mean, what would you have wanted AOC to do? Not work and rely off the government? No, AOC needed a job at the time and got a job bartending, and I'm sure she made good money doing it as a bartender. I'm sure she was a very good bartender doing her job well, just as she does her job well in Congress. But I know you won't agree with that statement, but the fact that we shouldn't, You know, the fact that somebody worked at an honest day's work used to be something that conservatives would love to see. People doing honest day's work. She did honest day's work or night's work as a bartender, so why are you criticizing that? Yeah, John Deff, they get so offended when you diss the Great Pumpkin. And if Chad even, I mean, is not, I mean, I think he still voted Trump, but understood that his vote also didn't matter because he lives in, Illinois, right? So, you know, I don't necessarily think that Chad is a Trump fan in of itself, but he still voted for him, which is a problem because, you know, whatever his issues are, you thought that the other issues would harm you more, which I don't understand why. Can we mock him for not washing himself? Absolutely. You know, there's a vast plethora of the population that gets mocked for being unwashed asses, because, you know, a 4chan thing or some ever came out basically saying, you know, that it was not straight if you wash your own bum or something like that, which is so silly. Let's see, Chad, I don't want Trump or Kamala to be fair, and well, that's fine, except for the fact that if you're viewing Trump as being the worst as Kamala, I'm still questioning your judgment because, you know, of this. Actually, this probably should be in the thing of a fat man rant. But before we do that, let's whatchamacallit. You losers. I mean, I know it's deleted, but Jake, we're upset about a successful businessman. No, Donald Trump is a successful con man. He made his money conning people. He made his money misusing bankruptcy to enrich himself. He would have his corporations have other people's companies do work for him, and then he would declare then he would cash out his companies using those golden parachutes, or maybe golden shower parachutes if the Russian rumors are true. And he and then whatchamacallit, he would declare bankruptcy so that his businesses wouldn't have to pay back the debts. But why did the businesses not have the money to pay back the debts? Because he basically took all the money out of the businesses and siphoned it out for himself. That's how he got rich. That's his, quote, success. I mean, y'all might be jealous about that. Y'all might think to not have a problem with them just using the rules, but he abused the rules, and to the detriment of other people who had to go without getting paid for work that was done for him. Donald Trump does the things that y'all complain that freeloaders do, supposed freeloaders do, people who are on government assistance. Donald Trump used the power of the government to prevent him from having to pay money to people who did work for him, i.e. he felt that he was entitled to other people's free work while he could get enriched by it. If anybody else who was a Democrat did that, you'd be crying foul. Oh, yeah. So, yes, Molly says he definitely abused the bankruptcy system. Lisa, bankrupt a casino. I mean, yeah, normally I would say it would be very difficult to bankrupt a casino by accident. As long as you get somebody running the casino who knows the casino business, you should not have to declare bankruptcy if the government is supporting you doing a business that's weighted to help you win money under the guise of entertainment. And that's not to say I don't gamble. I've gambled before. Fine. I just know what I'm getting into. But yeah, the argument that one of the reasons that I've made, that one of the criticisms that I've had with like people in the left media, like the MSNBC type folks, like who try and say, oh, Donald Trump is a failed businessman. They would say he's a failed businessman because of all of his corporate bankruptcies. I'm like, no, that's not how you frame it. It's not that he's a bad businessman. He may very well be a bad businessman because he had many bad business ideas. Trump steaks, Trump ties, Trump this, Trump that, or whatever. You know, that's all well and good, but the bankruptcy issue isn't about his being an inept business person. It's about him being a corrupt business person. And if they would have focused on the corrupt nature of his bankruptcies instead of focusing on the his poor decision choices, I think we would have seen a better response by the people listening to it and be like, oh, that is kind of shitty that what he did to small business owners. People now, there are small business owners who did absolutely work for Trump, get the shaft, and then decided to get another contract from Trump. And those people I don't feel sorry for. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. If you really were Charlie Brown thinking that Donald Trump would hold the football for you like Lucy and not move the football as you kicked, then you're dumber than I thought. Only way you should ever get money, only way you should ever agree to do anything with it that's a deal from Donald Trump is to get the money up front. Which is why I said in a previous show and put in a previous rant and have in a separate video up here on the channel, liberaldanradio.com. That's why I have said that nobody should be taking this money from the fork in the road unless you already have someplace else to go and they pay you up front one lump sum. Simple as that. If they're going to pay you a lump sum up front, then and you feel like you can have the health insurance from it, fine. Take the money up front, let them give you the health insurance or whatever, or wait and see what they do with your benefits. If they don't give you the benefits up front, then you can make, if you have another way to get benefits like a spouse or something, or if you have another job lined up, fine. But take the money up front, because there's no way I would trust Donald Trump would ever pay out that money. I don't even know if he has the authority to make the deal that he did, because again, Donald Trump is I'm going to do things now and then ask for permissions later. I'm going to blindly do these things to cause chaos and then respond to the chaos that's created when a lot of that chaos is unnecessary. So Trump went bankrupt 2 times while hosting the game show The Apprentice. Yeah, well, I mean, his businesses did. But again, his businesses went bankrupt not because he's an inept businessman, but because he's a corrupt businessman. Let's see. How can you screw up vodka? I even missed the message. Thank you, Aaron. How can you screw up vodka? I don't know, but apparently Diddy was able to do that while doing his other horrible actions. Diddy got vodka right. So it sounds like my children are fighting in the other room, but I'm not in the mood to deal with it right now. As long as it's not screaming or yelling or whatever, we'll be fine at this point. Thank you, Chad, for supporting the GoFundMe. I'm not saying you have to be silent, but you know, sometimes you do ruffle the feathers of the people in the wrong way. And again, as long as we're talking to the people and addressing the arguments being made and not the people themselves, then that's fine. Unless it's Donald Trump, don't body shame Donald Trump, but we can call Donald Trump an idiot because his actions prove him to be an idiot. So, anyway,
it is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. So happy I have my soundboard or a soundboard back. I still have to put more sounds in it, but you know,
it is what it is.
There you go. So, and I only have that. The you get nothing for the shirt. Is it is what it is. Oh my! And if it's not Scottish, it's crap. But I can also on the soundboard. I've also been putting up the other audio that I play, like the Hypocrite of the Week, the Words of Redneck Wisdom. So because I have that, I'm able to get all that taken care of as well in all one nice pretty window. It's nice. Anyway, but let's talk about. Do we want to talk about that first? We want to talk about. We'll hold off on the Gaza thing for a quick second. Hold on, I think I need to mute this for a second. Anyway, I think they heard me after I muted myself. So if you remember on Monday, the Hypocrite of the Week was the New Orleans Archdiocese, the Archdiocese of New Orleans. The Archdiocese of New Orleans is in the middle of bankruptcy hearings because they are having to deal with a bunch of settlements pertaining to their the clergy abuse and the cover-ups that they did, and they tried to get Second Harvest Food Bank, which is an asset of theirs, but it's an asset of theirs that also has agreements to only spend funds in a way that's, you know, within the, you know, secular realm of giving food to people who are hungry. They have agreements with Feeding America that they can only spend money on food. They can't spend money doing anything else. And the Catholic Church wants to take cash out and get a whole bunch of money from Second Harvest Food Bank so that they can't spend that money on feeding hungry people, but instead they're going to Instead, they wanted to help them with their fees or whatever going on with their lawsuits pertaining to and settlements pertaining to the abuse that they helped to cover up. So it has since come out that during this whole thing that the owner of the New Orleans Saints used to be Tom Benson, and also of the Pelicans as well. I think the Saints ended up buying the Pelicans after the previous local ownership kind of went away. It was George Shinn, I want to say, was the former owner. There might have been one in between. But then Tom Benson passed away, and Gail Benson, who was his wife, I think had convinced him to estrange his family or whatever, and she took over the reins of the Saints and Pelicans organizations. And apparently the way that Tom Benson met Gail Benson is Gail Benson had a very close, I guess, relationship with the Catholic Church, and New Orleans is a very Catholic city, and Tom Benson, I don't know how Catholic he was, but apparently he knew the Archbishop as well. The Archbishop hooked the two of them together, and they became married. So there's a very tight affiliation between Gail Benson, the owner of the New Orleans Saints, and the New Orleans Pelicans, and the Archdiocese of New Orleans. So there are letters and emails that were meant to shape the so-called narrative, or pulled in government officials and local media figures to try and deal with so-called crisis communications. The emails showed how the NFL Saints and NBA Pelicans trying to help the New Orleans Archdiocese abuse scandal, how they helped spin it, what Saints and church officials said and what their emails say, and then the Saints clergy abuse emails, there's 5 takeaways or whatever from it as well. So there are a number of locally influential civic figures and organizations that are involved with emails showing how the officials from the Saints and the Pelicans coordinated with the Roman Catholic Church in New Orleans, the Archdiocese, in a campaign to soften so-called media coverage of the decades-old clergy abuse scandal in the city. U.S. District Judge Jay Zaney is a devout Catholic. He had been a judge in New Orleans since 2002. He once publicly said that he had a chance encounter with Archbishop Greg Amin after a series of scandals locally and nationally revived the Catholic Church clergy abuse scandal, and during that encounter he suggested to Amin that Greg Bensel, the vice president of communications for both the Pelicans and the Saints, could help him navigate his messaging about the scandal based on emails and timestamps. Zaney would have had to have made that offline before one particular July 2018 newspaper article that was problematic for Amin and was published thereafter. The emails established that Bensel in July 18 asked Benson to tell Amin that Bensel wanted to offer crisis communications help. Over the next year, Bensel communicated with Amin, others at the Archdiocese, and allies with the goal of easing critical news media coverage and scrutiny of the church and its leader. So basically, they were trying to manipulate the whole media coverage of this thing, and the church was using the person who was the media relations person for the Saints and the Pelicans. U.S. District Judge Wendy Vitter. Wendy Vitter is the wife of former Louisiana Senator David Vitter. David Vitter was well known because it was revealed that he had illicit rendezvous with prostitutes and other sex workers, although he did claim that, quote, those New Orleans stories were not true. The New Orleans stories were not true, but he still admitted to serious sins involving hookers. And Wendy Vitter once claimed that if her husband ever cheated, i.e. if David Vitter ever cheated, that she would be more like Lorena Bobbitt than Hillary Clinton, but apparently she did not do that, and then she was, I think, appointed to U.S. District Judge by Donald Trump during his first term. When the Saints began, Wendy Vitter was the general counsel of the Archdiocese of New Orleans. So this is before she was actually a judge, but she was actually general counsel for them. And again, she is the wife of former Senator David Vitter, and had been nominated to serve as judge at the city's federal courthouse by Donald Trump in his first presidency. Trump's appointment of Vitter was confirmed in 2019 by Congressional Chamber. Before then, she spent some of her final months being copied on emails from Bensel about the media messaging campaign that he was helping devise. One of the times Vitter emailed Bensel was to share excitement about a Saints victory party in Baltimore or whatever, less than 2 weeks before he helped the Archdiocese publish a list of credibly accused clergy abusers who had worked locally. What a game, she wrote to Bensel, who had traveled to the game as part of the Saints Seduce. Congratulations, amazing win, blah, blah, blah. An email from Bensel to Vitter a little more than a month after the list came out said that he was glad that she and her husband had been able to attend a Saints game with their family. In that email, Bensel also asked for the aftermath of the list release had been from her perspective. I had not wanted to bother the Archbishop, but was just curious. How has the reaction been relative to lawsuits? Blah, blah, blah. Bensel wrote, it seems as though publicly it has been a fairly quiet. It is not clear if it replied, but the number of additional civil lawsuits prompted by the list, marketed as a gesture of contrition and transparency, drove the church into bankruptcy. The church had not managed to resolve the bankruptcy successfully at the time, blah, blah, blah. And then 93-year-old cleric Lawrence Hecker pled guilty in 2024, and then he went to jail, then he died in prison. Former DA Leon Canizero was a self-described pious and practicing Catholic, as well as a former altar boy, had been DA for about a decade when the clergy abuser list hit. On the morning that roster was published, using abbreviations commonly used for a conference call, and with Bensel emailed the Saints and Pelicans president, Dennis Lauscha, hours before the disclosure, and had a CC with Leon Canizero the night that allowed us to take certain people off the list. This list, so they updated and changed the list based off of, I guess, conversations with a former district attorney. I don't know if he was DA at the time. Newell Norman, who is a former Jefferson Parish sheriff and a talk show host, also helped with this. He became a second career as a talk show host at WWL, which is the largest station in the area. The radio station, not affiliated with the TV channel, WWL Louisiana, has long held the exclusive rights to the Saints broadcasts. On Norman's show, the station hosted a live on-air interview with Amond, who is, the head of the Archdiocese. And the Archdiocese published the credibly accused clergy abuser list. Emails among him, WWL owner, and Bensel brokered the conversation between Norman and Amond, and Bensel sent copies to Norman and the station director. Norman ended up asking about half of the suggested questions. Amond answered the rest without being prompted. Norman also asked questions that weren't provided for him, blah, blah, blah. Statement on Saturday from the corporation that owns WWL says WWL stands by the coverage of the story. We have no additional comment. Newspaper owner John Georges, who also ran for governor previously, he bought the Advocate, and then he bought the Times-Picayune via the Advocate, and there was conversations with him as well. He also had some questionable things going on with him as well. I could go on and on and on, but basically there's definitely more about this that's going to be coming out in the future, and we will continue to discuss it, because I for one find it absolutely evil that we have a head of a religion locally in New Orleans that is more concerned with covering his own ass and keeping his other assets, I guess, from not being touched, and is willing to take money out of the mouths of people in order to survive the bankruptcy, so to speak. But furthermore, he's willing to he was working with the Saints and the Pelicans and with other people who I've questioned for a while now. I didn't necessarily question Newell Norman's integrity, but now it makes me question his integrity, because I just thought he was a decent person or whatever who just happened to disagree with me on some things politically. But it seems like he was part in with that and part of the problem, so to speak. So as we get more stuff revealed from this New Orleans sex abuse scandal, which would hopefully have much more loud reverberations nationwide, because the fact that all these people are coming together to help the church navigate the wrongdoings that it's did shows that their priority was not with the correct people. The priority should have been with the victims of these crimes, and not with the people who either perpetuated those crimes or who helped those who perpetuated the crimes get away with it. So that's my problem. That's my problem with that. So let's talk about the whole Gaza thing, because I was not planning on having this be the main point of the show. However, the meat of the show now had to change, because Donald Trump announced yesterday that he was going to take ownership. The United States was going to take ownership of Gaza. They were going to own it and then redevelop. They were going to kick all the Palestinians out of Gaza. They were going to own it. redevelop it, etc. Well, what can I say except we told you so? Not just me. There are many other people like Hal Sparks and other people who have absolutely also came out and said the same things that I've said on this thing, on what was going on. Because Kushner first said how the property could be developed. He talked about that. And then 10/7 happened, and Donald Trump was like, finish the job, Netanyahu. He wanted Netanyahu to finish the job. So what did that tell me and everybody else who was paying the frick attention to what the hell's going on with this whole mess? It's that Donald Trump wanted to be able to take over Gaza and create Trump Med, like Trump on the Mediterranean or whatever. He wanted to be able to, get rich, enrich himself, enrich his families, enrich his cronies by Israel taking over Gaza. Well, because the deal was signed with President Biden, and President Biden was the one who negotiated that deal, that potentially prevented Donald Trump from being able to get his dream of opening resorts in Gaza. So now Donald Trump is saying that he under the United States are going to seize power. And there's been conflicting stories from Donald Trump's words to his press secretary's words as to what exactly that means, how that's accomplished. How do you take control and empty Gaza, i.e. ethnically cleanse Gaza without using the military? I don't know. No way for us to do that, but he's claiming the military is not going to be involved. But there's no way he can do what he wants to do without having the military involved. Where do you put those people? You need to have some place to put them. You can't throw them all in Gitmo like you're doing with the people here, with the refugees here. I'm sure he doesn't want to have them closer to America. So I don't know where the hell he puts them. You would have to require some other country to agree to take them. Of course, the majority of the Palestinian people are good, decent people and are not Hamas. Hamas may be garbage, but that doesn't mean that everybody else is, and that everybody else should be treated poorly. But here's the thing. Now that Donald Trump is doing this, and once they start actually trying to, empty out the population out of Gaza, which is by no other definition, there's no other way to describe it except for an ethnic cleansing of Gaza by removing all the Palestinians from Gaza. That is ethnic cleansing, 101, textbook definition. This is going to make it easier for groups like Hamas, like Hezbollah, like Islamic Jihad, like any other terrorist group. They're going to have a much easier time recruiting now. And Donald Trump is the greatest Hamas recruiting tool now. Donald Trump will be able to enable these groups to get more people both abroad and here locally in the United States, which means that if more people are recruited locally to support terrorist organizations or traditionally terrorist organizations, I'm going to say that for a particular reason in a second, if you make it easier for the recruits to happen, it makes it much more dangerous for the people living in Israel, for the people who are living here, for the people living anywhere, where now they're going to have an easier time recruiting against American imperialism that's going on right now, that Donald Trump is talking about. And here's the other thing, is that when the people who now get recruited to fight for groups like Hamas, when they're recruited by Hamas in Gaza to fight back against American imperialism, guess what's going to happen? The entire world is going to look at those people and going to be like, oh, those people are fighting the bad actions of the United States. So they're not going to label those people as terrorists anymore. They're going to label those people as freedom fighters. And in reality, that's what they will be. Because if they're fighting against this horribly illegal maneuver that Donald Trump is trying to do, it will absolutely be them fighting for their own freedom and not doing terrorist acts, which will then enable Hamas to do more terrorist acts against innocent people. Why? Because they'll be able to use what's going on from America as an excuse. Donald Trump's actions are now giving Hamas cover to not only recruit people, but to take other additional actions above and beyond what they would have to do to defend themselves in a guerrilla-style fight against the United States and or Netanyahu, who would be trying to clear out the people who remain within the area of the Gaza Strip. So I don't know what Donald Trump thinks he's doing, if he thinks that this is going to be good for anybody's security. I mean, you may very well have hardcore, dyed-in-the-wool evangelical MAGA folks who are going to be like, this makes Donald Trump the Messiah because he's just the second coming of Jesus, because we wanted to have some Christianity back in there, so he's going to make this a Christian haven because he is removing all the Palestinians or whatever. So they're going to make some excuses as to why this is not only a good move by Donald Trump, but it's like a holy move by Donald Trump, because they worship him as if he is their Lord and Savior. And it's going to make it easier for Hamas to strategize. It's going to make it easier for Hamas to recruit. It's going to make it easier for any other terrorist organization to now justify their activities and justify their recruitment, because, oh no, we're not just targeting civilians now, we're fighting back against American tyranny. So what do you think? Do you agree with me that this move is dumb? That this move is making it easier for Hamas to recruit? That this move is going to just be a money grab by Donald Trump and his cronies to be able to set up his own territories or whatever, his own properties within Gaza on the Mediterranean? Leave your comments below. If you disagree, let me know too. Remember to like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel as well. Become a liberal Danimal if you wish. And as always, unless you're a Nazi, have a good day. So yeah. I just cannot just fathom why anybody thinks that that's a good idea. Oh, Jeff, when is your birthday? So, wait, who's saying evil? Pure evil. Look at those college-going white lib women with colored hair. What? What is that word salad? I don't understand what you're trying to say. Transgenderism is taking shape in America? What? Transgenderism, not Jenner, but genderism. I mean, I understand maybe why you might call it Jenner because of Caitlyn Jenner, but Caitlyn Jenner is not the end-all and be-all of trans folk. Trans people have existed well before Joe Biden was in office. Or especially president, transgenderism will exist afterwards, because trans folks are human and people happen to be trans. And there's nothing you can do about it, nothing you can say about it. Well, what you can help, though, is whether or not you're mean about it, whether or not you yourself act in an evil way towards people who happen to be trans, which unfortunately a vast majority of the MAGA folks do treat trans folks as if they're others and if they're bad, simply because of the fact that they were born in a body that doesn't necessarily match who they believe that they are. So, see, Andrew Petrie and Fancy were AWOL for as well. People, including, were concerned. It's the community of friends in this chat. Oh, I think I'm missing part of the things. I mean, Donald Trump did say he loved the poorly educated after the 2016 Nevada primaries, and I think many of the people who are MAGA folks want to try to make arguments to help prove themselves to be worthy of that love still. So, oh, Jeff Curry's birthday is tomorrow as well? Well, happy birthday. You share a birthday with Henry. Look at that. So, Steve, I've seen this episode of TNG. Is it TNG or is it Deep Space Nine? That's the thing. Yeah, Alton Gillespie, it's absolutely the wrong time to cut education. Not just cut education, eliminate the Department of Education altogether. But that's why Donald Trump wants to get rid of the Department of Education. Donald Trump wants to get rid of the Department of Education because after the 2016 Nevada primaries, he said that he loved the poorly educated. So what better way to increase the amount of people that he will love than to eliminate standards on education at a national level so that he can make sure that people in the states are taught, at least the states that support him, support the standards that he wants people to be supported. I'm actually frankly surprised that he wants to eliminate the Department of Education. I'm surprised he's not going with something like, we're going to reform the Department of Education so that it is a department of patriotic education and basically churn out a bunch of brown shirts. Instead of actually getting rid of it, I'm surprised he's not trying to use the existing infrastructure in the Department of Education that he believes supposedly indoctrinates people and then doesn't then use it to indoctrinate kids on his own agenda. But again, people assert that he's a smart business person, and he's not a smart business person. A smart business person would understand that you would take what the existing infrastructure around the education of people, if you wanted to use it, to miseducate or re-educate others into being a so-called patriot, which would mean basically only liking Donald Trump and only following Donald Trump, because that apparently is what all you need to be a patriot these days. So anyway, that's why Donald Trump's stupid on this whole thing, but still, it's going to have the same end result of having less people be educated, which makes it more likely that people will support him and his goals. I mean, yeah, TNA is or TNG is definitely good. I've seen all of the Star Trek, so there you go. I mean, why does dyeing one's hair color have anything to do with why one is intelligent or not? I mean, my wife is as smart as she is. I mean, you might question her intelligence simply because of the fact that she married me. However, she's dyed her hair purple before. She's dyed her hair blue and purple before. And she's had her hair not dyed before. Her level of intelligence doesn't change as she goes from haircut to hair color. I guarantee you that there's a ton of Republican women and conservative women and MAGA women who dye their hair as they get older because they want to have their feelings. They want to feel affirmed in how they feel as a woman. For example, there are Republican men who I'm sure use hair dye because they feel that having black hair makes themselves feel better than having gray hair. And there are other people who have their hair dyed different colors because they feel better about themselves when they have their hair colored in the ways that they color their hair. So unless you're being critical of everybody who's dyeing their hair, including Republicans and conservatives who are gray-haired people who dye their hair black or brown or dye away the gray or whatever you want to call it, unless you're critical of them as well and questioning their intelligence, then I don't understand why you would question the intelligence of the people who dye their hair in certain circumstances just because you disagree with their political opinion. So clearly, what their color of hair or the fact that they're coloring their hair has nothing to do with your disagreement. It's just you trying to mock people because you have no better way to explain what your problem with their opinions are. If you could effectively argue against their opinions and make a cogent argument pertaining to what you support versus what you don't support, you would not have to resort to being critical of what their hair color is. Yeah, Aaron, Giuliani uses box color, and clearly he does it wrong. Absolutely wrong. So, Salty Crew. No, I was talking about colored hair radical left lunatics. If you were talking about colored hair radical left lunatics, and you're bringing up their hair color, would your opinion change of them if they had the same political opinions yet had their natural hair color? If that's the case, if that's the case, if you would agree with them if they had their same opinions but different hair color, then sure, maybe their hair color is somehow relevant. But I would posit to guess. I would make an argument that you probably would absolutely disagree with them still if they had their natural hair color. Therefore, the hair color is irrelevant and brought up by you as a reason to just muddy the water, so to speak. And as such, you know, you're just making your argument harder for yourself because you're bringing up irrelevancies. You see, Evie's on. It's a choice. I've had a white streak and never dyed my hair. Yeah, it is a choice. Hell, I had one of my aunts that I no longer speak to. Although if I had the option to speak with one of the people on my mom's side of the family, she would still probably be it because she was the kinder person of all of the people that were around. But she had this like little gray spot right here in her hair. And I just thought it was a natural thing. I just thought she naturally had this little gray spot right here, and I thought it was kind of cool that she had this little gray spot. Not realizing that she was purposely leaving that part not dyed. And then all of a sudden one day, the gray spot moved to like the center of her head instead of like the side of her head. And I was just like, wait, your gray spot moved? That's when I realized that she was coloring her whole hair and not leaving, and just leaving part of it gray. So, So yeah, clearly everything is, but yeah, Lisa, you're absolutely correct. It's just another way for Solitude to say other people, those people. It's, just a way to demean your political opponents based off of things, not that what they're, if you can make the argument, if you could make people agree with you by calling them names based off of, those characteristics instead of actually addressing their arguments, which the right wing is often not something that they usually want to do, I should say. If you can do that, then that's the lazy way out. But that's unfortunately the way that a lot of them take, because it's either they take the lazy way out and they insult how somebody looks only and doesn't talk about the issues, the meat of the issues, the things that they support or they disagree with. It's either they can't do that, so they'll just make the attack about their hair color or something else about the way that they look, or they'll just pivot the conversation to something else with the whataboutism that has nothing to do with the initial complaint in the first place. So, most of who are pro-Hamas? No. I mean, just because people support Palestinians' rights to be free and to not live in the issue, the way that they live, does not mean that one is pro-Hamas. There are some people who have done pro-Hamas things, or who have unknowingly said things that are things that Hamas supports, like the people who were shouting from the river to the sea, without changing it to like the everybody's safe and free. But if you were just shouting from the river to the sea, or you were shouting from the river to the sea, in the way that Hamas wishes it to be said, then yeah, you're shouting something that Hamas would like you to support. You're basically being a Hamas lackey. But we can support the rights of the innocent Palestinian people whilst also being against Hamas, while also saying that the state of Israel did not conduct itself well after the 10/7 attacks, because it didn't restrict itself to only attacking the people involved in the attacks. It also it basically used dumb bombs and other types of munitions that would widely target large areas and end up having an effect of killing more innocents than could have been killed if you would have just simply did a more surgical type of strike. So, but yeah, so according to many people on the right, me being critical of Israel for them doing their wrongs is being supportive of Hamas, despite the fact that I'm also critical of Hamas. So, but again, it's an easy argument. It's an easy thing to say. Just label the bad guy, label everybody as part of your bad guy, say that everybody is part of Hamas or supporting Hamas or whatever, and then you can just, again, take the lazy way out and not have to argue with what it is. And there may be a very good reason for me to not hit the phones tonight. We're just gonna make a judgment call right now. We're not gonna go to the phones tonight. I don't feel like doing it tonight. I'm tired as it is because I'm exhausted from everything, but we're probably going to end the show around 10ish, and I don't want to go too far from there. And I think if we open the phones, we might open up for a much longer debate or what have you. We will open the phones back on Monday, though, I think, though. Salty is undoctrinated right-wing lunatics. Weird is what they do. I would agree with that. I mean, Lisa, there are some people who have made arguments that do seem to condone terrorism. Like there was somebody who was being interviewed who was on the quote, the side of the Palestinians, who was making the argument that all of the land belongs to the Palestinians only and not to anybody else. And I don't know if they were talking simply about Gaza, if they were talking about the entirety of Palestine from the, quote, river to the sea, which that would then in of itself be a call of ethnic cleansing of Jews from the area. So that's one of my big issues, is that you cannot fight against Hamas's call for the ethnic cleansing of Jews in the area and then call for the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in the area. You can't do one and not the other. You can't do both. It just makes it's a hypocrite. So, are you a real centrist though, Salty? I listened to a centrist on the radio the other day. I was actually listening to that WWL radio station. I usually don't listen to them, but I was listening to, usually I listen to some of the morning show, like of Jeff Crouere, like you've heard. I've criticized Jeff Crouere in the past. Hal's criticized Jeff Crouere in the past. I was amazed that Hal that Jeff got on Hal's radar. That being said, I was listening to I've been on the car more recently during the midday, and some of the midday shows on the WGSO I don't really like. So I flipped it over to the WWL station, and I heard this one guy, his name's Scoot, talking about political issues. And one guy was trying to call up, and this guy was clearly on the left, and he was talking about how Donald Trump has said anti-Semitic things and done anti-Semitic things and blah blah blah. And Scoot was trying his damnedest to try and be like, well, I don't know if I've ever heard him actually say things that are actually saying that he supports Adolf Hitler, even though he said some problematic things. But I don't know if I've heard him say anything like, Adolf Hitler did. Like, he was trying so hard to fight to be that centrist, to be in the middle, to not be able to, I guess in his mind, lose any sort of, journalistic integrity by being fair to both sides or whatever. But in reality, Donald Trump has said things that can literally be attributed to Adolf Hitler. And so his unwillingness to even give any sort of credence to the person calling and said, well, yes, Donald Trump said this, and that's clearly a right-wing fascistic thing to say. But because he wouldn't do it, it just hurt my brain to listen to him. I'd rather listen to the idiots who call into Jeff Crouere, because at least they're not being vague about it. At least they're not being wishy-washy. At least they're not sitting there with their moderate takes. This is the same type of opinion or the same type of journalistic, quote, integrity that makes, Mika and Joe run off to Mar-a-Lago after the election. It makes it so that, news agencies are kowtowing and catering to Trump now and are unwilling to stand firm against Donald Trump's terrible policies now that he's president, because they don't want to offend people. That's why we need more small podcasts to be raised up, to raise up, for listeners to support the people at all levels. Your Trucker Johns, myself, Boss and Brian, and the bigger of the small guys. I mean, like Hal. I mean, Hal's got a good following, but it's not as big as it should be. I think I have a good following. It's not as big as it should be. Boss and Brian, Tommy, my dude, Texas. I almost called him Texas Pete. Sorry. Had a little brain fart right there. But all the people who, we talk about on the show, Midas, whatever, there's a bunch of people who should be having more followers and subscribers and listeners and whatever, because we're the ones who are giving you the real truth, and not the people in the media, in the mainstream type media settings, that are wanting to worry about their bottom line. They have to worry about whether or not Donald Trump's going to go after them corporately or whatever. So, Josh, calling yourself a centrist is tantamount to saying you're incapable of having opinions on difficult topics. I mean, that's somewhat true. I mean, there are people who may very well be fall in as, moderate or whatever on certain things or whatever, where they might, but the problem with the whole centrist idea is that, yeah, they often fight so much. They care more. A lot of times centrists care more about the integrity of their centrism than to take sides on any particular thing. Like, I may very well average out, I may very well in the past have averaged out more on the center of certain things. I used to support things like a national sales tax. That put me more to the right of where I am now. When I'm back in 2004. 21 years ago, I supported that. So I don't anymore, but I used to. But even though I supported a national sales tax as a right-wing thing, I was 100% pro-abortion without exception as a left-wing thing. I might have made the argument that government shouldn't be in the marriage business altogether at the time back then. I've since changed that mind too. There's a good reason to have government involved in the marriage business, because only government can, especially the federal government, can protect it when states try to deny people equal protection and equal access under the law. That's why you need federally recognized marriages. That being said, I took that little more of a government should get out of the way type look back in 2004. Now I think that government has a legitimate role to play in making sure that those legal incidents of marriage that is created by a marriage contract are allowed for every couple to have, and not just heterosexual couples. But even back then, I still held, hardcore to the left thing as well. So while my stances were, not wishy-washy middle ground on all the issues, I was left on some, right on some other. I've since now moved to the left on much of them because I disagree with the old saying that if you're young and you're liberal and you're not liberal, you have no heart. If you're old and you're not conservative, you have no brain. If you're young and not liberal, you might have no heart, but if you then move to the right as you get older, you have no brain because you actually allowed yourself to be indoctrinated by stupid things like fiscal conservatism, supply-side economics, etc. It's trickle-down economics, all those things of BS that billionaire corporatists want you to believe are true simply because of the fact it helps them make more money and get away with it and get away with hoarding money. See, Analytical Iowan, is that what it's called? Analytical Iowan, is that your other YouTuber that you like? Look, I watch some right-wing folks or whatever. I listen to Jeff Guerra show all the time, partially because I want to know what the other side is thinking. But, it is what it is. And what did Jeff say? Janelle squared? What? I'm missing. Oh, so Jeff, Jolie, Jackie, Janelle, Josh, the J Squad, who we missing? Okay. That's the point that was being made. You don't see Salty. Salty says Lisa brings up, what is your opinion on Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid? Salty says he will not touch those things. I don't believe you, Salty. I don't believe that Donald Trump will protect those things. Donald Trump is going after everything at this point, and not doing so in a legal way. Josh, I bet a lot of us are go pro-gun and pro-control simultaneously. Exactly. That's very true. In fact, 80% of gun owners, or even more, 80 to 85% of all people who own guns themselves believe in universal background checks. So there are plenty of people who are pro-gun who are also pro-universal background checks because they only want the people to own guns to be people who can legally own guns. They don't want the people who previously committed crimes that would make them ineligible to own guns. So, Sailor Gabby, I'm truly scared at this point. With one flip of switch, Musk can leave me poor. And Musk has no business being anywhere near the Treasury. Now, you want to go, if he wants to sit there in an office and go over all the government spending, and go over line by line where we spend money. If he wants to do that as a consultant to the federal government, I can't tell Donald Trump, no, he can't have the consultants that he wants as president. As long as they're not cabinet level of positions, they don't need to be approved. He can just get his consultants that he wants to consult them. And if he wants to have Elon Musk's ideas, as crappy as they might be, on this issue, if he wants to basically have President Musk coming in and telling him what needs to be cut and what needs to not be cut, then he can have that as an advisory role. But Musk shouldn't be allowed carte blanche, the ability to go into all of these buildings, access all of our private data, be able to stop spending, be able to recommend. Again, the executive branch, according to Supreme Court rulings, cannot stop spending that money that was allocated by Congress to be spent on a particular thing. Supreme Court said it. The court systems have said that. Absolutely. Donald Trump has no choice in his being able to spend funds. Now, if Donald Trump finds a way to spend funds under the way that they've been assigned in a way that's different than maybe intended, then if he gets creative with it, whatever. Like, for example, Donald Trump was able to use some funds that were geared towards, quote, national security, and he was able to use those to build the wall, or part of the wall, because he believed that the argument was sound in that this was for national security, and as such, he justified it that way. And I think the courts did agree with him on that. But again, just because he was able to get away and move make general national security funds be able to be spent on something more specific, that doesn't mean that you can now take a specific expenditure and spend it on something else entirely. You can't do it. You have to do it under how it was passed to be spent. And if you want to reduce it for next year, then talk to the Congress, talk to the people in Congress, let them know that they have a, that you want them to take certain line items out of the next budget, and then have it passed that way, and see if you can get it passed, the way that bills are supposed to be passed and become laws. It's not a very difficult idea. Salty, you do not assess the productivity of federal employees by terrifying them into thinking that they're going to lose their jobs. You do not assess the productivity of federal employees. Do you know what? You don't know how you assess the productivity of federal employees? You look at the job that they're doing, and you see if they're doing it well, which requires you to actually take a look over a certain period of time and be like, okay, here are the people that are currently working for the federal government as civil service employees. Here's what we're paying them to do. Here's the job that they're required to do. Here's the things that they did, the producible items that they've worked on over the course of their tenure over the first, let's say, 6 months. Are these people being effective employees? Are they getting the job done for what they've been hired to do? Cool. Then we keep them on. Are they lacking? No, we don't keep them on. Are they exceeding what's required of them? Good. We give them a promotion. That's how you do it. You don't, again, as I said, you don't disassemble a car just to find out what's wrong with one particular part of the car. Brought my wife's car in for the air conditioning to be fixed. They're not going to disassemble the entire car and try and then look at the air conditioning. They're going to diagnose the air conditioning to see what the problem is. They're going to look at the car as it's running, or they're going to run electrical tests or whatever as it's running, and they're going to say, oh, this is the problem with the vehicle. This is what we need to fix. That's how you do it. But Donald Trump is basically swatting at flies with a hammer. Yeah, he'll miss one. He'll get one every once in a while, but he's going to cause a lot more harm because he's trying to solve small problems with the wrong tool. Do I believe that there's overspending in government? Absolutely. There's one example. The one example I love to use is citing Dwight D. Eisenhower talking about the threat of the military-industrial complex and how we have spent billions of dollars on jets and tanks that our military did not request, would not want to use. They're just sitting on a tarmac. They're sitting in a parking lot. They're just sitting there unused. But why do we build them? Because we wanted to use Congress wanted to use federal tax dollars to pay off their campaign contributors. So if, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, any other of these parts of the military-industrial complex, any other company that's part of it, if they gave campaign contributions to the members in Congress are going to try and pay those people back by saying, hey, we're going to give you all this money in the form of, the ability to buy tanks and planes, and we don't care if the military doesn't want it. We're going to use our jobs to pay you back for getting us elected. Do we want to cut that? Absolutely. Do we cut all of that spending? Maybe not. Maybe we cut up 3/4 of the spending on those unnecessary items for the military, and then use 1/4 of it to increase soldier pay, increase health care for soldiers, especially mental health care, making sure that you don't have anybody who leaves the military who ends up homeless for whatever reasons, and make sure that they have the quality mental health care that they might need to be able to handle life after coming out of a wartime situation, especially if you're coming out of a situation and you're dealing with issues like PTSD or any other type of disability that might have taken place because of your service to this country, be it physical or mental. Because we definitely could spend more money on that, and I don't think that would be a waste of our tax dollars at all. We absolutely can cut spending in various places. I think there was one point in time when I was being critical of the government because there are certain circumstances where farmers were overproducing food, and as such we needed to make sure to keep the ability to rotate crops. So we were paying farmers to not make certain food, and then we were basically then paying other farmers to make more food. I'm like, well, why are we doing both? We shouldn't be paying farmers to make less food and then pay other farmers to make more food. Just pay the farmers, or stop paying the farmers to make less food, and maybe pay those farmers to make the different food that you need them to produce. Right? I mean, it might not be possible in all situations. Maybe the farmers that are overproducing are in one area that can only produce these types of goods, and maybe you need production in the other areas where you can produce those types of goods, and sure, fine, whatever. But it just seems to be typical of U.S. spending that we do one and the other and not try and limit both. But, you know, I definitely liked President Biden better than I liked Donald Trump, clearly. I mean, that would be obvious, but it doesn't mean I'm going to trust him with every single aspect of everything. I think we should be looking at what every single politician does. How do you know a politician's lying? His lips are moving. So that doesn't change between parties. That doesn't change between, you know, person of this party and person of that party takes over. You know, you should always have. Now, do I trust Joe Biden more than Donald Trump? Abso-freaking-lutely, because Joe Biden hasn't made it rich, made millions and millions and millions of dollars off of people by abusing bankruptcy. He got money because he sold books. And a lot of politicians do that. They'll sell books. Although, unfortunately, what some people do, like Marjorie Taylor Greene writes a book, and then the Republican National Committee then buys up all the copies of the books. So therefore, it's basically a way for the Republican National Committee to funnel money that's donated to them directly into the pockets of Marjorie Taylor Greene without it having to be considered a campaign contribution. Right? So, and see, Salty, you can't be a centrist if you think that the radical left think Biden is a member of them. You just can't. Calling Biden a radical leftist would make the people on the radical left laugh at you. The problem is that if you're so far away from, so far to the right, if you're far enough to the right, where the difference between Joe Biden and Joe Biden and somebody on the left, someone who's like a leftist, a socialist or whatever, if you cannot perceive the difference between Joe Biden and the people who are on the left, guess what? You're way far to the right because you can't perceive the difference. It's like, you know, you're sitting there on Mars and you're trying to claim, oh, there's no difference between Texas and New York. Well, yeah, you're from Mars. The planet looks like a dot to you. So there's no real way for you to see that difference between New York and Texas. But you know, if you're in orbit around Earth, you'd be able to see that there's a vast distance between New York and Texas. Same thing with people who try to call Biden as a leftist, a socialist. No, the left would have loved Biden to have been a socialist. He's not. He was never. He has moved more over to the left over the course of his political career, sure. But he was never a leftist. I mean, I remember when people were calling Obama a socialist, and the socialist people I know were like, yeah, I wish. But it just goes to show how far to the right you are if you can't notice the difference between Biden, who is really a centrist, and people who are actual socialists. Big Hook. Biden surrounded himself with the best and brightest and used his mission statement of improving life for all Americans as a reality. The problem is right-wing media consumed and uses conspiracy shit. Absolutely. That is absolutely a problem as well. And Biden did things like, for example, he passed the legislation to get rural intranet or rural, high-speed internet, fiber going to rural communities, which is great. Help people be more informed. Maybe even help them download porn easier. I don't know. Whoever you want to use the internet, none of my business. That being said, lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, Governor Landry, the newly elected Republican governor of Louisiana, took all the credit for so-called Gumbo 2.0, which is their sending broadband to rural areas in the state. I'm like, hello, this is helped only available because Joe Biden passed this infrastructure bill or whatever that bill that was in. This is only available because Biden allowed you to do it. But you gave him no credit. Governor Landry gave him no credit whatsoever. But yeah, Joe Biden took steps to help the lives of people who are American, regardless of whether or not they're going to vote for him or against him. Donald Trump is a transactional politician who will only do things for you if it helps him, and that's it. Eva Zantz, Biden is more liberal than his voting record. I've had long discussions with him as a teenager. Interesting. I'd love to be able to have a conversation with him about many of things, especially because of the fact that my grandparents worked on his initial campaign for Senate. Because I was born in Wilmington, Delaware. They lived in Wilmington, Delaware for, I guess, from before I was born till I died. They lived very close to his house or whatever. So yes, I know it's 10:04. I saw that we passed 10 o'clock. Thank you. So let's see. Linda Adler, how conservative is it to let money completely buy their own puppet president? Well, I mean, it's fascist. And fascism is a part of the conservative right wing, so I guess it's fairly conservative. It's real conservatism to do that. Now, real conservatism and modern day actuality conservatism versus hypothetical conservatism are two different things. Hypothetically, a conservative would always be for small government. So hypothetically, a conservative would not support laws that ban gay marriage or ban abortion or ban all these other things, except for the fact that they don't actually want small government. They want huge government. They just want huge government to do things that they want government to do, and not other things that, make sense. Fox News is not news. It's registered as an entertainment company. Exactly. They got away with a lawsuit. They made the argument in their lawsuit that they are an entertainment company. And that's how they were able to avoid having to pay a certain amount of fines. Let's see. Salty is denying stuff and believes in Trump. As far as I'm concerned, Salty is a lost cause, just like we've lost our democracy. Yeah. If you're unwilling to see what Trump, if Joe Biden did exactly what Donald Trump has done with Bill Gates instead of Elon Musk. If President Biden had done that, y'all would have flipped your gaskets, because the other way around. You know what? If President Joe Biden gave Bill Gates the unfettered access that Elon Musk is getting, I would have had a problem with it, and I would have criticized him for it too. And that's the difference between myself and the MAGA supporting folks, is that I will criticize, and many of the creators that I know would be more than happy, and not happy, but would be more than willing, even if unhappily, to criticize their own side when our side does wrong. That's not MAGA. MAGA will never do that for Donald Trump. They will always find a way to make an excuse for what Donald Trump has done. The only reason that Fox is the #1 news network is because OAN and Real America's Voice still have very shoddy ratings, and also so basically Fox still gets the monopoly of all of the conservative viewers, whilst everybody else watches things like MSNBC, CNN, CBS Evening News, NBC Evening News, ABC Evening News. So if the people watching the media on the left are split up amongst the various news organizations that exist, but all the people on the right consolidate themselves into one main one, then yes, that one is going to have the higher viewership. It doesn't mean that it has the higher viewership doesn't have a majority of all viewers watching it. It just means that they have more overall viewers than individual stations, but those other individual stations usually end up having more viewership overall than Fox News. So it's a silly argument to say, oh, more people watch it, therefore what? That makes them right? That makes them correct? No. Popularity is not a sign of correctness. You can absolutely be popular and be wrong. Unfortunately, we've dealt with that a lot. So Elon is helping us, dude. How is Elon helping us? That's the thing. You believe Elon is helping you because that's what Donald Trump told you to believe. Anybody who believes Donald Trump will believe any snake oil salesman. It's just not. It's just not something. It's not something you could do and believe yourself to be making a smart decision. Unless you just are blind, unless you're willfully ignorant of all the things that Donald Trump has done in the past. Holy crap, Dan's left arm is missing. Oh, noes! Oh, there's my left arm. It's back. What flavor was the Kool-Aid? It's orange, Big Hook. The flavor that Salty that is drinking is orange-flavored Kool-Aid. That's the correct answer.
It is what it is.
Thank you. I live in Wilmington and voted early for Sarah McBride's vacant Delaware seat 1. Awesome. That's good to hear. Evie's on. It's a shame. I mean, actually, it's very well possible that in an upcoming Thanksgiving, I don't know about this year, but in an upcoming Thanksgiving that I will be in Wilmington for at least a day or so, if not more. So because my uncle still lives in Wilmington. So, and a lot of the times we have family get-togethers in Delaware because it's a centralized point for the Baltimore family and the New York family and the Pennsylvania family to all kind of come in and meet at one particular place. So I may very well be, if it's not this year, it'll be next year when we return back to our regularly scheduled trips that we would take every Thanksgiving. I guess it really depends on how well Cassie is doing. And again, I don't want to think that Cassie could be having still difficulties into the summer or into the fall or whatever. I'm hoping that they get this resolved within the next month or two, to at least to where she can come home and walk around the house and be capable of doing all that stuff. I'm hoping that that's the case, that we can get her back here so she can be with us. I don't like sleeping in my bed alone, but and that's why one of the reasons I've asked again, this final time the show, up in the chat room areas, either on Twitch or on YouTube, you have the GoFundMe links to help out. If you've already contributed, you're part of already the people that donated at least $2,000. Overall, I appreciate every single one of you for doing that. If you've shared it, I appreciate you as well. And if you haven't done either, at least please share it with your friends and let them know that you're helping out a family that is really struggling right now to get things done. Feel like I'm falling, deeper and deeper into this debt spiral because of everything that keeps piling on top of me, and it sucks and it's stressful or whatever. So the other thing I guess I'm adding again in both of the chats is the Best Fiends link for my Nerdy Dan stream. Again, on nerdydan.com. I stream over on Twitch, twitch.tv/nerdydan.com. I stream over there every Tuesday. And it's I get sponsorships occasionally from different games, and the more people play the games, the more money I'm able to make to help support that stream as well. The Nerdy Dan stream is basically a sub part of the Liberal Dan radio stream. We're all kind of one happy channel family. One just happens to be more pop culture gaming stuff. The other one just happens to be this one that's political 2 times a week. So again, thank you everybody else for watching. Appreciate everything. I'm feeling like I'm becoming a pickle. I guess from the dinner that Henry wanted to go for his birthday. There's a lot of seasoning, a lot of salt, and it's basically making me feel very dried out. I'm surprised I haven't started coughing more often. And again, for the people watching on Twitch, I still haven't found a good outro for that. So on the Twitch people, you're going to get a hard out. Otherwise, everyone else will get to hear the music. If something big happens, like I almost went live. If I didn't have the Nerdy Dan stream last night, I would have went live on Liberal Dan last night because of the whole Elon Musk or the whole Gaza thing that Donald Trump announced. Because of the whole Gaza thing, I almost went live here instead of on Nerdy Dan, but I figured because we have the show tomorrow, I'll be doing it. So I do have a writing class tomorrow that I'm going to, so I probably won't have any sort of special show tomorrow. But if something big happens by the weekend, it's very well possible I could have a Friday show. I don't know. Watch my socials, Liberal Dan Radio, Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, etc. Liberal Dan Radio all over the place. If you want to help support the show financially beyond the GoFundMe, you get the most bang for your buck with at least $3 of it by making a $2.99 or bigger purchase while playing that Best Fiends game. Otherwise, Venmo is the best if you don't want to have any fees taken away. The GoFundMe has minimal fees, and that's directly towards that. All those funds are going to be used to help myself and Cassie deal with all of the issues dealing with her medical bills and everything like that. Otherwise, you can also buy me a cider. Go to liberaldan.com, click the buy me a cider button, or go to buymeacoffee.com/liberaldanradio, or you become a patron, patreon.com/liberaldan or patreon.liberaldan.com. Either way gets you there. So again, thank you all so much for watching, for joining with the show. Appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much. Your being here is kind of helping with my mental state or whatever, because it means a lot that y'all are willing to come, sit here and discuss politics twice a week with me. I'd love to be able to do it more, but it would have to, it's kind of a thing. Do I do it more to get it to pay more, or do I have to wait for it to pay a little more to do it more? I don't know. We'll see. But currently right now, we're going good at the 2 days a week. If I could do this more a week, I would absolutely love to do so, but that's up to y'all. So anyway, again, please share as much as you can. Comment, like, subscribe, share, all that other good stuff. There's lots of non-paying ways that you can support the show to help it grow. But until next time, thank you all very much, and you have a great rest of your night.